TIF methods are instructional methods that we can use to integrate transition skills in consistent and authentic ways in our classrooms and over longer periods of time. This visual shows how the classroom environment is a mirror of the target environment. For example, our students' target environment may be preparing for the workforce. So the target environment may be the workforce, it may be careers, it may be college readiness. Therefore, our classroom must mirror that target environment to allow our students to practice the skills they need to succeed in the target environment. In the middle of this classroom environment visual, you will see the box that says the TIF lesson content. These are the lessons that you are creating, and for example, the lessons that we watched that were assessed and complemented. But around that, the periphery of all of that, is the actual environment of the classroom. What happens when students enter the classroom? What happens on an ongoing basis as the lesson is being delivered? What kind of routines and norms are set up in the classroom? All of these other types of instructional things that happen in the classroom can be TIF methods, and they can reinforce the kinds of transition skills that students will need when they enter into the target environment. So let's look more specifically at the methods that are in this classroom environment visual. We have routines, learning task formats, technology, norms, and language. These are 5 different methods that can be incorporated into a class to provide this authentic and consistent instruction in transition skills. Let's look deeper at what each of these are. So the TIF methods are the routines, are a sequence of actions regularly followed, a routine process. In fact, you could argue that all 5 of these are routines if they are used in a systematic way. Norms are standards of acceptable behavior. They are the expectation within your context. Learning task formats are routine structures for activity and tasks that provide a practice for lesson content. So if you often use a jigsaw reading, that would be a lesson task format. Or if you often use a chart to structure a mix and mingle activity, that would be a learning task format. Language is the vocabulary and language structures that are necessary to address the TIF skill at hand. So what language are students required to use when they are addressing that TIF skill? What language structure allows them to address that transition skill? And then technology, of course, is the technology that the workforce more and more is demanding of our students. So things like email use and browsing and simple uses of logging into computers. All of those things are the technology skills that our students need to acquire for workforce, career, and college readiness. So we're going to get a chance to explore what each method looks like. TIF methods can be labeled in more than one way, however, and like I said, there's an argument to be made that all 5 of these methods could be considered routines if they are consistently used in a classroom in a process way. So how can they be labeled more than one? So for example, expecting students to email assignments is both technology and a norm. If you are at a higher level class and your students need to email assignments into you, and this is a norm that you are expecting of students, then they are using both norms and technology. If you're expecting students to speak courteously in the classroom, that is a norm. But when you highlight the language structures, for example, can I, could I, may I, it is also a language method. So here is the key, really. The important thing is that all of these methods reinforce TIF skills consistently and authentically, regardless of whatever the lesson is for that day. So let's look at some examples. Which is which? Look at the example of each TIF method on the following slides and determine the TIF method it primarily matches. Although there is one primary method for each example, they may match the other methods as well. Name that TIF method. I will give you a little time to read through the example. What do you think the method is? A routine. Name that TIF method. Norm. Name that TIF method. Language. And as we discussed before, you can have, or one activity may be two different types of methods. For example, this could also be a norm. Name that TIF method. Learning task format. So if you use a survey like this repeatedly in your class to gather data and then use that as an extension to an activity or as a warm-up to an activity, this is a routine kind of structure for an activity, and we call that a learning task format. Name that TIF method. Technology. Also, it is teaching norms, both norms in the workplace and a norm that you are establishing in class.